Hi, everybody.
Hello,
How are
hello,
you?
hello.
So let's just check in with everybody before we dive into any topics. We're going to just sort of, I think, ease our way into this one tonight. What do you think?
Okay. I mean, honestly, I certainly want to talk. I'm feeling great tonight. Actually, like today was
Mhm.
really. I love the wordage that you picked for this topic. Like we're just talking about privately, peace, love, and uncertainty. I
I was
really
wondering what you were going to think because I usually let you name and title and do all the words around this podcast. And sometimes I ask you what you think when I name it, and you're like, yeah, it was okay. Yeah, I noticed it. All right. And so I'm glad that we were really in tune for this one. That makes me happy.
we really got to talk about your impressions of me lately. I need you to take our winter break to really examine how I sound in your head. But anyhow, I love it. But what I was saying is, this week, right after you named it, I really caught myself, and this actually has been a large, and I don't want to make this all about me, but it's been a large part of my experience this year, not giving away my peace and love to uncertainty during this human experience. And I know that everyone
Yeah.
that's going to join us live tonight, some of you will watch this later, but those of you that are coming in live, there's a lot of uncertainty going on in America right now. And it's certainly playing with a lot of people's frequencies, especially empaths and light workers. I think if we're not feeling it ourselves, we're taking on other people's energy. So there's a lot going on right now. So hopefully we can, as a roundtable, talk about it, empower one another, love one another. But yeah, I love the wordage for this. What's your feeling and sentiment around this topic?
A few things. I know that like 2020 is like the uncertainty year, but whenever I think about uncertainty, it always makes me think about that, well, everything is kind of uncertain for the most part, but that we're just more like aware of it and we're just like more focused on it. And so I guess I just get curious about like, wow, like, well, what if that tuned us into possibility? Because thinking from an energetic perspective, when people don't know what's going to happen next, it's actually like the place where you're in like the best ability to create what's next. So but I also, okay, that's the other side of the topic is I have a really weird way of seeing things. And that you remember even with the pandemic, that like, I'm like, ooh, like something good is coming, but I know everyone's going to think I'm a fucking weirdo if I say that. But I'm like, yeah, like this is the awakening. Like this is the time. Like, oh yeah, the age of Aquarius that's coming. Yeah, by the way, that means all the systems are crumbling. So it looks like the world's fucking falling apart, but it still can be put back together in a new way, you guys. So exciting. And so it's hard for me to talk about these things sometimes because, like I always say, I feel like a bit of an alien, right? Because everyone wants to pick a side, and it's usually
Here
like
we
kind of
go.
this
It's
or
this
that.
again.
And it's a strange way to feel and be in conversations. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, this is going to feel a little uncomfortable with my weird way of seeing shit. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
No, I love that perspective. For for me, I mean, with what's going on right now, and like I was telling you before, and like I don't want to necessarily make this whole topic about politics and the uncertainty of that. It's about uncertainty of a lot of things that really play with our frequency and our human experience. But what I was really realizing this last year is like all these people that I look up to that we like quote and we think as spiritual, like, gurus, like you look at like Gandhi and you look at like Mandela and you look at the Dalai Lama, they found their peace in great oppression. And they
Yeah.
found their peace during very trying times in jail and being, ostracized. And I've really this last year learned that like I need to stop giving up my peace and my love during trying
Yeah.
times. Like, we have a saying in the program, a part of like God is everything, God is nothing. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily believe in God, but like if you believe in the power of the universe, it is everything or it is nothing. If you believe that good will prevail, it's everything or it's nothing. So that's really what I've been focusing on this last year of my journey. And this really brought it to a crescendo this last week. So the two women that are joining us are fantastic and smart. I was watching a little bit of their own podcasts. They're amazing. So I can't, and like Sherry, like her voice last time, something about Sherry's voice that just lulls me. So I can't wait to hear what they have to share. So this last couple of days, so what is your frequency like? Besides your whole alien experience, have you felt any of that uncertainty, or has it been, if it's been kosher for you, that's awesome. And, you know, any tips on getting more kosher?
Well, sometimes I think that the universe brings things at just like the right time where you really need that practice, or you really need that thing to support you. And the thing that I've been telling you all the time is like, I have like a really important purpose that I feel like I can't get distracted from. And I need to like really be in service of showing up for other people. And so I happen to like start this more intentional morning practice, this different like journaling routine. And it happened right around the same time at the beginning of this week when all of this was really kicking up. So I almost feel like I've been, even though it wasn't intentional to plan it that way, I've just been really hyper focused on the things that get me excited and make me happy and what I'm here to do and the people that I'm here to serve. And I'm like, I'm just going to like live in that and do the best that I can do as a mom, as a coach and a friend and a wife and all the things. And so I don't know, but then there's that part of me, that little inner critic that's like, oh, that's shitty of you. Like you should feel guilty. You should be more angry and like you should be worried and in fear. And so like, I wonder if anyone else has that, like where they feel at times that they should always be like down in like, you know, maybe the place where other people are at. But I mean, I'm just going to name my experience, even if it does make me seem shitty. I'm just going to name it because I think someone else probably feels like that.
Well, as your best friend, I'm going to tell you that's shitty for you feeling shitty for not feeling shitty, because that's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, it's one thing if you like, we're like, oh, all your emotions are not valid. You guys are so beneath me, but that's not the energy you bring to this conversation. For me, I totally get what you mean about like, for me, it's like once having a spiritual experience, and I come from having a rock bottom in alcoholism where all this doesn't hit me like I know it would hit me if I hadn't had that experience. But for me, the oppression and watching the people I love around me really struggle to find their footing when they feel like they're being told their life isn't the same as someone else's and that their rights aren't as meaningful as other people's rights, and their skin color casts a shade of inequality instantly the minute they're born. That really affects me, watching people go through that. And yeah, it hits me in certain moments too, like fuck, you know, we just got the right to marry 5 years ago, and I can lose that. And I can lose that opportunity. And for marriage isn't for everyone, but it's something that resonates within my heart. And that might be gone for me again. And to, you know, watch my friends, my family of color really, really struggle when they're being told that their hurts and their pains don't matter. That's what really helps me. And I know empaths feel that a lot. So I think that's what I really struggle with, is that empath part where I suck up all that like hurt and all that anger, and it just drains you. But, you know, a couple of years ago, this experience would have enraged me. I definitely would have been blackout drunk by now. So, but I love that you're not letting it tarnish your love and your joy. And I want to learn from you and everyone else.
I think I just realized that because I have 2 kids, one that turned 1 this week and a 3-year-old, that like I have a really hard time, like I always say, like taking a shit by myself and getting a thought to myself. And so to be like real here, it's kind of like my life is like constantly like, oh, put that down, like stop. Okay, I'm going to go work. Like, okay, I'm going to be back. So I think in some ways, like maybe it's good that I have a distraction of these beautiful little joy-filled beings to like, just like focus on loving them. And I think that that's just a part, right? That like of what's going on too. But it's can
I make a request for next season?
I already know it's going to be.
Can you find another analogy for your lack of time other than you taking a shit? And can you not send me videos of you having that experience where you can't take a shit? Because that takes away my peace and love.
Well,
but anyway.
for the sake, like we want to talk on this podcast, like we talk to each other in real life. And sometimes I become aware that other people are listening to us talking, and then I feel really awkward. But then, I mean, I'm trying to lean into it as best as I can, because I don't want to be like, yeah, sometimes when I'm, trying to have a moment to myself, like, and be like proper. And it's just like, can we just be real of what our life is like and how we talk to each other?
No, I don't care about that. I love having these conversations with you, but I instantly get the visual. And for me, you taking that shit, it doesn't come out smooth. Anyways, can you put up?
All right.
Can you put up Carl's comment real quick, because Carl just cracks me up.
This?
Yeah, we vibrate higher without the toxins in our body. So all right, you taking a shit is very important. I get it. I understand it.
Is that what he's saying it's related to? Oh my gosh. Let's see. Yeah, it sounds like Lamont's telling us to lean in. He loves how far you've come. Yeah, in your journey. He's seen it. Hi, Andy. Okay, so we want to hear your wins. Like, we're going to pull in our guests in just a moment. But if there's something that you're doing that's really working for you, if you're struggling with something, like, let's just have a conversation, be open here. We have two other coaches. We have Sherry and Barty that are joining us in a next moment or so. But we're going to have just a really honest conversation about how do we navigate uncertainty in all the different aspects of life. And I would bet that a lot of you, if it's heightened outside of you, that there's probably other things that feel kind of uncertain, because I think once we're tuned to that energy, then we start to feel uncertain in a lot of things. So is it showing up in other places in your life? Is it showing up in your career? Well, I guess possibly with the pandemic, or in your relationship. So just share with us like your wisdom here. But I'm going to pull them in because I feel like they're going to help focus and kind of ground this conversation, because otherwise you and I, we tend to float away. That's why we need guests, so that they help us focus in. So I'm going to invite both of them in. Let me just change our little configuration. Hello, how are you?
Hello. Good. I'm loving the chaotic energy.
Welcome to our lives.
Yeah. I would love for you both just to talk a little bit about your podcast, because I know that Sherry, connected with you, and we're loving that you also go into the taboo and some of the things that make people uncomfortable to talk about. So tell people a little bit about your podcast and who both of you are as well before we dive in.
Sure. So Barty was actually an assistant at one of my first coaching classes, and we connected there and have just sort of stayed in touch. And what was that? Was that this year? Or last year? I don't know. At some point we were having a conversation and she said, I really want to do a podcast, and I think I want to do it with you. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. I'm in. I don't know what it's about, but I'm in. Let's do it. And it really started around taboo topics and things that we weren't allowed to talk about aloud. And that's quite a wide range of topics,
Such as some of your favorite taboo topics.
I think trauma and grief are like throughout our podcast. I know that, James, you mentioned you've listened to it. So I think trauma is a recurring theme that keeps coming up, and grief is a recurring theme. We don't take the time that we need to grieve. And we don't take the time that we need to like heal from our trauma.
So I'd say those two. And then I think another one that we've sort of hit on a little, or really resonated not only for us, but for our listeners. We talked about being children of immigrants. We talk about South Asian and all people of color, like representation in the media, in politics, in DC, and just how powerful that can be. So I think we also take sort of a social justice lens to all of our work and all the things that we're talking about, along with, the sort of common thread across all of it is you can probably pull bits of trauma and bits of grief no matter what you're talking about. because it's actually very much in the water.
Well, and I love that you do. I was actually speaking to someone close to me about their own process of trauma and grief, and I feel like women, especially, are told not to, really be vocal or vulnerable with their trauma and grief. So I love that you tackle that, because I watch women that I deal with on a day-to-day. They feel like they have to bottle it up, or they become the hysterical woman. So I love that you guys dive into that. Can I just ask you real quick before we dive into the topic, how are you both feeling this last week, especially these last couple of days with everything going on?
Bharti, you go first.
Yeah. So I was sharing with Sherry earlier that I was really just like you, Ashley, I was following my practice. I was meeting with my meditation group every evening. I was doing really well. And then I think I hit a point on Thursday where I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Why can't they just call this election already? And all was lost. So
it's funny because I went the reverse. We recorded an episode on Tuesday, and Bharti was all like, I'm going to go meditate. I'm cool. And I was like, whew, girl, good for you. I was and then, but sometime after that, I was like, all right. I mean, literally everything is out of my hands. I can't, there's no one to talk, nothing we can do. So I had some relief, and then it was a little bit of stress of what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Even though I was trying to avoid the internet, and I totally failed. But yeah, I think right now in this moment, it's optimistic, and also still hanging on, still waiting to get real confirmation and get real relief. And I don't know if that's even going to happen for me until January, to be honest.
But I have to remind myself that everything's gonna be all right. With this particular situation, we went through 4 years of it. Everything's gonna be all right. And the place I personally go with this particular situation, I don't want to beat a drum if everyone's tired of hearing it, but with this particular situation, I have to remember that I can be happy and find peace even in a dictatorship. And I'm not necessarily going to the extreme and saying that our current president is a dictator. I know everyone has different feelings about that, but I have to remind myself, even under a dictatorship, even under iron law, people find a way to do it. And I need to stretch my spiritual growth and my spiritual trust and faith to meet whatever obstacles come my way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And, I agree with you, James. I think that's the key, right? Even at the start of the pandemic, I remember, feeling like, oh, we have no control over anything. And I remember Sherry saying we've never had any control over anything. and it's so true. We've never had, it's this false sense of control. And that's what makes us feel we have certainty. And none of that is true. All of that is fake. And if we just focus on, really whatever spirituality means for you, tapping into that, and it'll work out.
I think the other way to look at it might be even perspectives in the sense of well beyond us as our lives, well beyond humans as a species, and well beyond everything will be fine, in the sense of the earth will be fine, right?
Exactly.
There's some level of, when I get perspective, when I think how big the universe is, how little how
we are.
It gives me a little perspective.
And I absolutely agree. And because in recovery, someone might, not to try to reveal too much about the program part of it, my grand sponsor brought forth this poet by Emmett Fox about back in another time when they're going through big political discord and all kinds of things, and it was talking about the captain on the bridge and how the universe has gone through huge explosions before, we're going through huge explosions after us, and like you said, we are a little tiny ping in the whole seep of the universe. And then even talking to Solange before, she's talking about they have great upheaval in their own country right now, but for us, we're everything, and we're the center of the universe. And it is really important to take that that big zoom back and realize we're just a small little dot in this universe. So thank you for giving me that perspective as well.
Yeah, I think the other piece that came up, hello, coronavirus uncertainty, right, earlier this year. And I think I mentioned this last time when we spoke, was Bharti's framing of, you can take this destructive energy and take it with intention and say, okay, how do I intentionally destroy, intentionally recreate something? So this idea of, we have possibility now. Uncertainty brings possibility, brings it is what, Ashley, what you were saying, where it's a little bit like, it's strange to say that when other people are truly, they are hurting, they are dying, literally, and we can acknowledge that. And I don't want to minimize that for anybody. And the word apocalypse means revealing, if I remember correctly. Like it's an unveiling. I think that's the word, and it's lots have been unveiled. And so, what do we want to do with that?
Yeah. What do we want to create from that?
Yeah.
But I do think the other side of it, and actually, I'm not. If you want to jump in here, I'm not meaning to like over talk any of your space, but I think other side of it, for you, that you tackle being women of color, is the great rise of especially women and women of color that came to the call of whatever this is, this great political upheaval, this great awakening. What are your thoughts on that? Especially, like the squad, and I don't know why I get icky with that term for those women, but like the squad and women of color, the amassment of LGBTQ rose to the challenge. What are your thinking on that? Is it awakening? Is it because they rose to the challenge? And how did that make you feel to see these women step forward?
I want to say they've always been there, right? I think we owe Black women a lot, especially.
Yes.
And I think this election, Stacey Abrams is especially being recognized. So I think that they've been there. And again, people are sort of realizing that, is how I look at it, is like, we need to be supporting the people that got us here, and that have led the charge and done the work, and join with them and follow their leadership. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, same. I wholeheartedly agree. They've always been there and they have always done the work. And I think it's just sad that it's all, now we're able to see all of that come to fruition. But how does it make me feel? Oh my God, I'm so excited. Like to see, to see the squad get bigger. I was so excited. I was so happy when Cori Bush got elected, and to see Stacey Abrams, what she has done in Georgia. Wow. And then we have Auntie Kamala. Like she is like gonna be in the White House soon.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about this. I am still like, as I start to open up to like this really being real, like, whoa, I haven't even had time or space to think about, wow, there's might be a woman of color in the White House, right? As the vice president. And Kamala Harris has lots of questionable things in her history and her political record, but all of that aside, that's important. And let's also just honor, like, that's really, really important that she's present there. Yes, I feel great.
I think that's what I get excited about too, because I don't really feel connected that much to Biden, but I'm just like, well, what are our options here? And I think a lot of people feel like that. And I think most of politics, I feel like our political system is just kind of a fucking mess in general, but I get so excited. And like, I think that a part of me like thinks that something might go down where she now is like the one that steps in as president. Call it the intuitive psychic in me. But I don't know if you know that I tune in and I do readings and things like that. Yeah, but there's a lot of different things that I see, and part of it is like that I don't think that it ends just in December, because people are like, oh, I just want 2020 just to be done. And then we started new. And I'm just like, I think that this will be going on for longer and that it gets a little bit weirder. It doesn't mean that the election is not going to go the way that we're wanting it to go. But I just feel like that there's more systems that have to fall and a little bit more of that energy of chaos and destruction. So I think this is a really good time for us to have this conversation about, okay, so what if something else comes up this year? 2020 is not over. Like, what do we do with that? What are we learning about ourselves from how the rest of this year has gone? And how do we take that, just how both of you were talking about, what do we want to create from that or strengthen in ourselves so that no matter what is going on, like we actually show up in our full kind of best energy of what we came here to do? Because I do believe that those of us that are here, that are listening to something like this, that we're here for a reason, that we came here for a reason. And I think that that's the thing that I see, is that there's been so many people this last year that have been pushed and shoved into a corner that they've started to be like, I will not take this anymore. This has gotten to the point where will say no, and I'm going to rise up. I'm going to share my gifts. And I do see people, I think both of you are saying, yeah, we've always been here. And I see others that there's a strengthening in their energy or their voice to like, okay, well, I'm going to write a book, like, or I'm going to start my coaching business finally, or I'm going to niche down. I'm going to support women of color specifically and not try to please everybody. So I think that there's been just a lot that's come from that energy as well that have amped people up. So I don't know, has it given you guys like a little bit of extra boost? Was it something that made you maybe finally start the podcast that you've been wanting to start? Anything like that?
I think, maybe energetically that was happening in the universe and I picked up on it, and Sherry picked up on it too. And we did this. I think I got to a point in my life in general where I was just like, what, like that person has a podcast? Like, I can totally have a podcast. and you know, and that's where, you know, that's how it started.
Totally.
Yeah, I really think that I do agree with you, Ashley, that I think that there is definitely like this collective energy that's happening. And the more that continues, the more we're going to start seeing people take charge of themselves and do really create great things in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the collective energy is that awakening that has, I think that it's hard to say this, but a silver lining of the past 4 years has been, right, the unveiling, the people stepping up to the plate, the people, even if it is just one thing that shifts in their life, you know, that changes how they exist in the world and who they interact with and how they interact with them, that's all really important. And I think that, I guess I want to include like the words peace and love here as well, and thinking about these things that have happened over the past 4 years are a form of peace and love, and like all of that's like pursuing peace and pursuing love to stand up, right? To rise up, right? Peace and love doesn't have to just be sort of Zen or, you know, or very like hearts and rainbows, you know, that love can look angry. That love and peace can be angry, you know, and I want to like broaden the definition of peace and love.
Yeah.
I think we absolutely needed to get rocked. I think this is the universe. I think, you know, I'm so sorry for the people that have ended their life journey due to coronavirus. I am so sorry for the financial strain it's put on people. But Ashley and I talked about this months ago. It is part of the Great Awakening. Are you valuing your life? Do you value your life? Do you value your freedom? And then I think with this political upheaval, no matter what side of the aisle you may be on, I think it's kind of clear what side most of us are on. But how much are you engaged? And, like, I think for minorities, it's like, how much are you going to sit down? Are you going to keep sitting down? And I think that, we shouldn't, and I know this is going to sound horrible, expect for things to quiet down in the year or years to come, because the universe is on a roll. And, you got to either trust that you're going to be all right, because if you start ringing that bell of like pain and sorrow and self-pity, that's all the universe hears, is that bell being rang. So I think that the universe is on a roll, and it's going to gain more and more momentum before we do get to a place of solidarity or, the great thought of ascension. So I don't think we should expect peace. And I don't love that coronavirus happened. I don't love this political upheaval, but what's on the other side needed to happen and has been waiting for decades to happen. So I am kind of excited in a sick kind of way, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a complicated place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, Sherry, 100%. It's a complicated place to be, but I'm with you that it needed to happen. We needed to have the current administration in the presidency in order for us to see what was happening in our government. That's the only way we were able to change who was running in the House and who's running in the Senate. So we needed all of that.
I think I want to caveat that with, like, we do need that. And I think especially if you hold power at all in your station in life, which we all do, that those with the most power definitely are the ones that needed to be awoken to it. And so just wanting to, like, there are many people who have been lived through it, right? And so that's a different experience. And I think the other piece is that there's this huge potential, right? And I like the language of active hope and that framework, and it talks about the great turning, and that doesn't define which direction the turn goes, right? It just says there is a great turning, and we still have to work at it. It's not, social progress is not predetermined. It's not an eventuality, or we have to work at it. And so I like the idea of, like, we have the ability to jump in and help turn in that direction. And we have to in order to get there. And that if we don't, then it could turn in a different direction. And we're all fighting for maybe different directions, but we need to be talking and working together to try and get that turning to happen in our direction and faster.
Well, I do want to say that comes for personal as well, to come away from the social aspects. Like, I love that you tapped on, like, meditation earlier. Like, we have to find that vibrancy within us and hold on to it. So what are some of your tools that have gotten you through, like, this big political upheaval, personal upheavals? Like, what's really pulling you to the next frequency on this journey?
For me, it really has been a lot of meditation and different types of meditation. I don't just use I don't just follow. Sorry if you can hear that. I apologize. Anyway, yeah. So different types of meditation. I also do this workout. It's called Intensati. That also helps. The main thing, and we talk about this quite a bit on our podcast, is taking, like, just pausing and just checking in with this is very CTI driven, right? Like, check in with your body, right? What is happening? What's that sensation I have? And just dig into that. Like, well, why am I feeling that way? Or, what's causing me to feel that way? And just really digging into that.
I love that. I think that's feeling your feelings, the actual work of feeling your feelings, literally sensorily feeling your feelings, to help process. I will just say I have a lot of practices, and they've fallen apart, and then they've come back together again, and then they've fallen apart. So, like, I'm definitely not there's no perfection here in that realm. But I've tried meditation. I tried yoga, journaling, social connection has been really powerful. creation. Like I just picked up some cross stitch the other day that I haven't touched in 20 years, that sort of making something with your hands, and ultimately like nature, being out around trees, especially now in the fall. It's gorgeous. And I think what it is like I have a tool belt of a variety of practices, and I'm getting okay with like I don't have to do yoga every day for that to be true, right? But if I'm doing something, if I'm choosing meditation one day, if I'm doing art one day, if I'm talking to a friend, those are the practices that I feel like as long as I'm doing something to move me forward, that I can to move those feelings through, then that's good. But if I don't know if this is anybody else, but I have a lot of like inner tendencies to be like, you got to have a routine, you got to do this for 15 minutes, and XYZ checklist of self-care, which then becomes work and it's not self-care. So I would say what I've learned is in holding uncertainty is one, to just be okay with that and let yourself feel the feelings that go with that, which is for me, fear, grief, all of it comes up. And then moving the motions through whatever practices work for you at any given moment, and having that toolbox. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you to pull that. Get out of my head, Ashley.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, Ashley just pulled a comment from Carl. It said, for me, it's my faith that keeps me strong more than anything. And that is the really trippy thing about, and I don't know if you ladies relate to this or if you have other thoughts on it. This last year has really strengthened my faith. And I come from being a very agnostic man before getting into recovery. This last year, and I feel like a lot of people have lost faith, but for me, it really strengthened my faith. I was telling Ashley the other day, and I wrote about this briefly on Facebook, like, I have this thing where I ask the universe to show me signs all the time, and my sign are wild parrots. And whenever I've been really out of tune, really feeling like a lack of God, which is really a lack of me connecting to God, I asked to see wild parrots. And, come Wednesday, I was like on the verge of tears. And I'm not a big crier, even though I'm a big gay man. I'm not a crier. And I was walking outside, and I was really just praying to the universe for a sign. And I looked up, and there was a pack of wild parrots flying over me. And they sat in the tree, and they stared at me, and they observed me. And I observed them, and it really was the shift, because I'm going to be honest, Wednesday morning, I was like, oh my God, I need to get the hell out of this country. And what am I doing here? And democracy is broken. But like, it was really that faith that brought me back. So I don't know if that resonates with you for either finding further faith or losing a little of faith this last year.
I think I found it. I think over and over, I kept finding it. That's not to say that I haven't lost it along the way. I mean, clearly, I woke up on Thursday and something snapped, right? And I was just like, what's taking so long? And I was completely freaking out. But yeah, I think that over this past year, especially, and just over time in general, it has definitely gotten a lot stronger.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, it's definitely gotten stronger in the sense of like connecting with ancestors, connecting with nature, really reconnecting with Buddhism and meditation. I haven't done like intense study, but I know that it aligns as much as it aligns with, my values and how I think about the world. And I think that there's a book by Pema Chodron called When Things Fall Apart that has come to me over and over again in many times of my life. And it was another one that returned this year, just full of wisdom. And she's a Buddhist monk. And I think it's whatever you want to call your faith, whatever it is that holds you, to look beyond the day-to-day and look beyond and know that things are going to work out and things are going to be okay, whatever that is. I feel like that came to me, again, of like trusting, in us, even in humans, to do the right thing in relationship.
That's so fucking hard to do sometimes.
It's extra hard to do this year.
Yeah.
But
It's
when you
super
do,
hard.
Yeah, but I find when you do trust it, it is returned to you. Ashley, I wanted to ask you real quick, and I don't know if either one of you have children, but Ashley, like for you, this uncertainty in raising two small children, especially Sage, who just turned one the other day, my little baby, like does it hit you differently thinking about them versus your own personal experience, everything that's going on?
It's complicated because there's different aspects of the energy that I tune into, different perspectives on it. I feel like I've already known that I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the thing that I would always hear one of my spiritual teachers talking about, of like this sort of big shift that happens that like all of us healers came back for. And I remember I'm like, oh, this is it. And so it's like, I already know that like things are fine. And so I don't like, I'll start to go down that alley. And I'm just like, there's certain things that, they get a little weird or dark. I mean, honestly, I think we watch very child-directed YouTube for the most part and have a lot of things for them on that are just, silly things. And so that's probably helpful, but I just try not to go down those, if it's like a fear rabbit hole and I feel like I'm starting to get in a place where I can't be like show up for my kids, myself, the people around me, that I'm like, okay, then this probably isn't for me right now. I don't fully ignore it. I mean, I've been in therapy the last 3 months along with having 2 coaches. So I've been doing a lot of feeling into things, a lot of emotional things. But I think that there's aspects of it that I become aware of. But ultimately, I think how like Carl and how all of you have been saying, like, I already know that things are fine. I'm just, I just feel that reality already being there. But James, like, just like your tattoo of like the phoenix, like rising from the frames, it's like this stuff has to crumble before we can put the pieces back together in a new way. And I've been in a bit of that process on a personal level this year. And I think a lot of people have, like a lot of the coaches and healers I've seen sort of these personal kind of like alarm clocks going off that people are either stepping into their gifts or they are stepping into them in a much bigger way of being like, okay, I'm going to really do this. I'm going to really be her now, like the woman that I came here to be, or James, for you, the man that I came here to be. And it's like, I think about that and how many of the amazing coaches and healers that I see around me. And I just get excited because I actually realize that they are going to live in a much different world than I lived in. And thank God, like, especially for Sage, like I definitely connect with things differently for her. I feel a slightly more protective, sheltering energy with her as a woman. And I just think that, thank goodness that it's not going to be the same place. I think that if these changes weren't happening, I would be in if it was more like, oh, business as usual, I actually feel like it would be a little bit more worrisome. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes I feel like a one-note pony or whatever you would call it, because I'm just like, I see it this way. And I think that it's so simplistic sometimes that I don't know. It feels very different. Like I almost feel like a little bit of like when you get fiery and stuff like that, I don't know if it's my capacity as a mom that I like only have so much mental energy and time to be there, or if it's like me being slightly kind of different. I just have always been sort of the one that feels a little bit different and a bit alien in things. And so I'm like, maybe
we go again.
I'm like, maybe it's just my weird way of seeing the world. I'm like, but I feel like you guys might feel like this as well, that sometimes like we're in this very dualistic energy often. Like, I feel like that's sort of like living on earth and being human. And I feel like it's such there's so much more contrast right now with things. It's so much more intense. And I think that without realizing it, sometimes I am, if anything, I'm like I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm just zen all the time, because I'm not. There's chaos in different ways, but I guess I just want to give people a realistic view of what goes on in my world and inside my head. And I don't want to show up just being like, this is what I know that's going to make me look good or look like a smart person. But yeah, it feels a little awkward because I feel like sometimes showing up to these conversations that I am relating into it in such a different way that it feels almost wrong. So
yeah, that resonates a lot. Like, it is such a weird thing. Because we're in this human body, but then we're also one, you know? So there's this illusion of separation, but it's not really there. So just like flip-flopping through that throughout the day, even.
Yeah. Another thought was, being a mom, I'm not a mom, I don't have children, but being a mom, you are doing the work, right? In that, like, what you are being is that center of calm, that center of Zen, of knowing, and what you're providing for your children in that is exactly where you should be, right? That makes so much sense. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to reassure you there that's right. That's right.
I needed that today. I feel like all vulnerable talking about this.
Well, actually, when it comes to like this particular uncertainty, like the last few days and political charged issues, you yourself always point out where each of us play different roles in this experience. And, I feel for, myself as a minority and for these women, like, we've been beckoned to do certain different actions during this time, and you are meant to be the calm port. You are meant to be the one that grounds and really teaches children serenity. And I feel like, before I got sober, I was very politically active. I let it actually eat me up. It became toxic, where I was so involved. I became resentful at the world around me. I didn't trust the world around me. And then I went on my spiritual journey. And this time around, it's certainly not eating me up, but I have been called back to it. Because there's certain fights that certain people must arise for. And this comes in our personal lives as well, and in certain relationships or at work. So actually you're being exactly what you were meant to be at this moment. And I just feel that, if you are fired up about that, you shouldn't feel shame about that either, because you've been called forth by the universe. Like we just named all these courageous women. They were called forth by the universe. And just like the two of you are, and Ashley, your role is to... Ashley did the most amazing thing on Tuesday night. She just sent me a text and said, how can I be here for you today? How can I best show up for you? And that meant the world to me. So you are, like, any of you like listening or anything like that, like there's a lot of people meant to be the port. There's a lot of people meant to be the warriors. There's a lot of people meant to be the healers. There's some people that are meant to be the safe houses. We're all supposed to play our role. And I think we all come to it correctly if we don't come with hate or greed. And as long as we're not doing that, we're all showing up correctly and we're all doing the best we can. Go ahead, babe.
I'm curious how all of you see your role. So I guess in like coach speak, we would call it like our purpose and the impact that we're having. Because I do totally believe that everybody has their part of it. And so how are you seeing your role in this as it relates to, I guess, what's unfolded this year and right now?
Yeah. I think for me, I see my work very much in the context of helping those that are marginalized to like live their full life. And that doesn't ignore the realities of like being marginalized in this world, but that specifically taking a risk to be who you are, whether that's, being, living the career that you want to go live into, if you want to bring a book, if you want to write a book and some new art project into the world, bring that. We need that. If you want to start a business, start that, do it. And it is this world of like risk and uncertainty. And it's greater for those that are marginalized. And so wanting to like help people in that place take the risk, like do it, figure out what we need to do to give you the support to actually make that leap. That's how I see my work tying into this unfolding is whatever is emerging, like helping that come out. Like I call myself an idea doula, like having that birth out into the world, because those are the things we need in the world and that have been sort of tamped down. And I want to see them amplified and like really thriving out in the world.
Yeah.
For me, it's, slightly different. the work that I'm doing is bringing the tools and the coaching tools specifically into organizations and communities that haven't had access to it before. And within organizations, it's really important because if people are happy within the organization, they are serving their people better and they're serving their customers better. And it's not about just the bottom line. For far too long, it's just been about the bottom line. We need to change that. And then the second piece is into communities that haven't had access to it. It's not necessarily always marginalized communities. It could be within communities that just didn't know that there's 3 levels of listening, or you can ask thoughtful questions and powerful questions versus like getting into it with your family members or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize that aren't from the coaching community that it's really about expanding consciousness and like being able to take a step back and be in choice around things. And I think that it's so important that coaching is everywhere, especially right now. And I'm really appreciative. I was like looking at your page before this just to see the work that you're doing, because it's like we need people everywhere working on every little piece so that it can all change, just like you were saying with your metaphor. So I just get so excited. I'm curious, actually, James, how you hear from you, because I don't think you think about this kind of stuff as in depth as us coaches do, that like ponder questions.
I think that you got to realize that there's my world of recovery is another form of coaching. And for me, it's very, very important that for me personally, my journey, and I've really come to realize these last few years, is to show that, and it's going to sound like I'm being very niche about it, but that a gay man can come up and get sober and still be his full self and still be his full personality, and can fight for equal rights without losing his harmony. And also be prosperous in that journey and not, forego having a nice, beautiful, full life. And that, to me, that's very, very important. And I was actually towards the back end of the Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer's book. And I never realized that the man was arrested, and Michael Singer.
I was wondering if you got to that part yet.
and I hit it today. For those of you not familiar with Michael Singer, I'm sure both of you are, but he's the writer of The Untethered Soul, which is a huge book. And the Surrender Experiment is his own personal journey, finding how to be in the seat and really how to write that beautiful book. And in part of it, he gets arrested by the FBI for, white collar crimes. And in it, he's writing about how he just observed the whole thing and how he just was being fingerprinted and all these charges are coming up against him, and how it didn't hit him. It didn't hit him in the negative way. It didn't pull him or drag him. And I feel that's really my role in this, as I recover from alcoholism, from addiction, from abuse, to find that within myself, to teach to other gay men and women and anyone that pretty much wants to listen. So I feel my role, and I'm really trying to step into it. And times like this during the Great Awakening, it's like you either show up or you realize where you're not showing up. So that's currently where I'm at.
Well, I feel like I always like to drive home to you that like I see you stepping onto like stages and releasing your book, and like I see this for you in like such bigger and bigger ways. So I just, every time you bring this up, I just have to like remind you of how I see you, and that I feel like it's so many more people than I think that you're connected with.
And just by the way, Ashley and I, when we're going to have guests on, we are big creepers. And I was creeping on both of you after you accept my friend request. And what you're doing is amazing. And your podcast.
Thank you.
So I think right now, especially, it's about empowering one another, and not just minority and empowering minority. Like Ashley, like you have so much power because you're not quote unquote a minority. You really empower people that are quote unquote different to not feel so different. And so I appreciate you greatly for that. And I think that's what this can bring forth, is really the push to really highlight one another's beauty and talents. And I'm hoping the rest of the world is going to rise along with us.
Yeah, I think we've all been conditioned that things that fit within this certain box are normal. And I'm pretty fucking weird, like all in all. And, even if I'm coaches or, I feel like the different one. And I do want for people to be more weird and to worry less about what they were conditioned to be. And so I feel like that's why I lean into the taboo and the things that maybe we were told not to look at, because it's like, well, maybe there's more power there. Like, oh, we can find our own answers. We can tune in. We'll have to let people around us to find it. And so I feel like I'm just really into that. And personally, I think it's about actually honoring the divine feminine gifts, because in business, we were all to do things like men and all of these feminine gifts, like intuition. We're not given a seat at the table. So I am really on a mission right now to get loud about that and to remind women especially to remember those parts and the weird parts too, of course. So can you tell people how to stay connected with you, how to go and subscribe to your podcast as well?
Yes. So it's Unfolding Sharp Corners. I think anywhere where you listen to podcasts, you can find it. Spotify, Apple, Google, what have you. And then we have an Instagram page where everything is linked for you right there as well. And it's just Unfolding Sharp Corners.
Unfolding Sharp Corners. Thank you so much. And can people find your personal websites as well if they go to your Instagram?
Oh, yeah, they'll find, we are linked on our Instagram as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You make it sound so weird. Can they find your OnlyFans? Thank you both for spending the evening with us. You both are dynamic, and I hope you guys will join us again.
Love to. And we could have you guys over in our podcast.
I would love that.
I would love that, ladies. Love that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Hello.
Hi.
Before we close up, I want to kind of bring up a comment that Carl but he wrote in one of the comments. They use the elements one. It really resonated with me, and I kind of just want to close with that because it just made me smile.
The 5 elements?
Yeah. So Carl wrote, use the elements to heal you. Allow the wind, quote unquote, air to blow, healing you on from Earth. Our planets are magic. The whole process is amazing. Just tap into the elements and allow the magic to flow. I love the way that sounds, and it just resonates and hits in the right way. And again, I want to thank you for being your amazing self in such small ways. And I think that's why, besides the fact you're a gay man stuck in a woman with huge breasts body, I think that's why so many people are drawn to you, because you just see the magic in everyone. And I just really felt it during this whole election process, where it felt like, oh God, the whole world's turning on us again, and homos are going to be in concentration camps, and what's going to happen to my colored brothers and sisters. You just bring that grounding energy, and I'm very, very thankful you are my best friend and my twin flame on this journey.
Well, I love you, and I want you to know that there's times where I feel like in family text threads where I've kind of there's times where I just kind of shy away from them, because they'll be like, what's everybody feeling? How is everybody doing? And oftentimes I just kind of ignore it and I just let them have the conversations. But today I was like, great. I just journaled. I set some intentions for the day. And I just find that when I align my energy, everything just feels so much better. And I just showed up like that, even though typically I'm just I'm the spiritual sheep. You know what I mean? I feel a little bit of that. I'm sure a lot of people listening, they're the rebel and misfit of their family unit, right? I think that's pretty relatable. But I just was whatever. I'm going to tell them. And then they chimed in and they're like, yeah, I have my family, so I'm grateful. Yeah, me too. I'm just glad my family is like happy and healthy. And so I think that I'm like, man, I'm meant to be the different one. I'm meant to own that role, not shy away from it. And so I just noticed a different aspect of where I was maybe just kind of fading into the background. And so I think that's why I was really just trying to show up as real as possible.
Girl, you get to be the different one. You get to live that other experience. So I got to remember that, you know, my uniqueness and my quote unquote minority is a beautiful fucking gift. And I get to see
it is, but it's awkward sometimes. And so there's times where it's just like, I wonder if life would be easier if I was just like a normal person that just did like normal people things and had normal.
Okay, now you're sounding a little Kim Kardashian over here. Like, I just wonder how it'd be if I was less beautiful.
No, that's not what I mean.
I know what you mean.
I'm like, okay, universe, so I have to have tarot cards and like have this weird personality and sort of see things different than everybody. And it's like, I know it's such a gift, but I feel like just like being an empath, there's times where that feels challenging. It feels challenging to step into all of it. And it's been such a fucking tornado to be like, and there's more for me to step into and get comfortable with, because it's like, ultimately, I think human beings, we have this tribal element in us and this survival mechanism as a tribal people. And so there's that inner terror that sometimes gets set off within you when you think differently than people, when you seem differently. And I know that you've been different, right? Your entire life. And all of you that are listening, you've been different. That's why you're a spiritual rebel and misfit like us. But there's times where it just feels you just are feeling it a little bit more, and you know that you're out of your comfort zone and you're just trying to show up and just like be you. But I just have to like name that uncomfortableness, because that's part of my reality right now, you know?
Well, can you throw up real quick what Solange wrote? She wonders how life would be not being an alien.
Okay, because I know this isn't our topic, but I'm reading a book about alien kids. And of course, like, I look back at our guests, and I've talked to both of our guests. I'm not even kidding. Both to River and Ashley are, since this whole talk, because they were talking about like alien hybrids. And I'm just like, yeah, I feel like it even confirms. I'm just like, I think we're all alien hybrids, by the way. So before you be like, this bitch, like, I think we're all alien hybrids. And that's the whole thing with the missing link, and why we didn't go from Neanderthal to just like human beings, but that somebody tampered with some DNA. And I think that that's something that we can actually tune into and find a scientific element to. And I think that there's different people that, as it calls it in this book, I know I'm going way off topic, but fuck it. It talks about them being the bridges. And I think I've told you that I feel like there's going to be a lot of disclosure, and that part of this great awakening is us realizing, those that aren't already aware, that there are more beyond this universe. I think it's really going to fucking bring humans together when they're just like, oh shit, like, I guess we are all the same race, and I'm not going to really worried about like what color skin color he has or she has. When I realized that like there's a lot of other things and beings out there. So
you know, you're speaking my language right now, girl. You are speaking my language. But now I just got this image of you all freaking stoned, calling River, hey River, do you think I'm an alien hybrid too? Because I'm pretty sure I am and you are. So that's my favorite images of you stoned. But I love you. Thank you for showing. Are you
trying to wrap things up right now?
Well, we're over an hour, girl. We're over an hour.
I know, but I didn't get to talk to you yesterday. And sometimes I need, just to connect with you and shoot the shit on random things like this.
Well, there's a thing called a phone.
I bet Lamont, Carl, and Solange, they might, they haven't connected with you in a while.
There's a phone, girl. I love you very much. Thank you for everyone that tuned in tonight.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.